Hey, what's up guys, it's DarkArmedDuelist and today we're going to be doing a Gimmick Puppet deck profile. So I'm really excited to do this for you guys because this deck is one of the creepiest decks ever created in Yu-Gi-Oh! But it's extremely fun to play because you can make all sorts of really cool XZ monsters to OTK your opponent with. So without further ado guys, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and definitely check out the Patreon down in the description below for all those awesome rewards. Like getting your name description in a single video, getting assigned cards in the mail, and even getting to request a deck profile every single month to your Patreon. So without further ado, let's get straight on into this. So first off, we're going to be playing 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet Dreary Doll. This card is a definite 3-of in the deck because it's a great extender in this build, because if this card is in the graveyard, you can banish any other Gimmick Puppet monster from your grave to special summon this card to your side of the field, which is a great ability just to instantly get this card on the field. Plus, it has 0 attack points, making it a machine duplication target, so you can get multiple level 8s on the field to make multiple XZ plays. We then play 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet Bisque Doll. This card is super easy to summon to your side of the field because it has an awesome effect that you can special summon this card from your hand by discarding a Gimmick Puppet monster, which works extremely well with your copy of Dreary Doll, so you can get Gimmick Puppets in the graveyard or even get Dreary Doll in the graveyard so you can bring it back to your side of the field. This card is great in the build as a 3-of, plus it has the ability you can banish this card from your graveyard, and then your opponent cannot target Gimmick Puppet monsters that you control with card effects this turn, giving you a little bit of protection. We then play 3 copies of Magnet Doll. Magnet Doll is an awesome 3-of in the build because if your opponent controls any monsters and all monsters that you control are Gimmick Puppet monsters, minimum 1, you can special summon this card from your hand, which is a great ability for this card to have just to extend your plays. Plus, this is a going second build, so we can OTK. So this card is a definite 3-of in the build. We then play 3 copies of Gimmick Puppet Humpty Dumpty. This is one of the best normal summons in the deck because it has a great ability that when it's normal or special summon, you can special summon a Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand, which is a good effect for this card to have, especially since we play so many different level 8 monsters in this build. For example, your copy of Bisque Doll and Dreary Doll are just really good targets to be able to summon out with your copy of Humpty Dumpty, but also we do play level 4s or other level 4s in the build, so you can actually make rank 4s with this card and another level 4. We then play 3 copies of Terror Baby, which is probably the creepiest card ever created in Yu-Gi-Oh! And definitely comment down below what card you think is the creepiest ever created. I think it's this card. But this card is great in the build because when this card is normal summoned, you can actually target a Gimmick Puppet monster in the graveyard, except the copy of this card in special summon in defense position, which is just going to extend your plays by getting additional monsters on your side of the field. This card is a great extender in the deck, just to normal summon to your side of the field and get additional cards on the field. So you can link summon or even go in for your XZ plays. You can also banish this card from your graveyard, and your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to the activation of your Gimmick Puppet monsters effect this turn, essentially turning your Gimmick Puppets into Speed Spell 4, which is absolutely insane. We then play 2 copies of Gear Changer. Gear Changer is great just as a 2-of in the build because it has the ability it cannot be special summoned from the deck. You cannot actually machine dupe this card out, which is a little bit unfortunate, but it's still a good 2-of in the build because once per turn, you can target a Gimmick Puppet monster that you control, except this card, and this card's level becomes a level of that monster, giving you an additional monster on the field that can match a level of another card, so you can go in for your XZ plays. We then play 2 copies of Gizmek Orochi. Gizmek Orochi is just an awesome extender in the deck because it does come out as a level 8 monster, which is really nice by just banishing the top 8 cards of your deck face down, which is a great effect for this card to have just to get it on your side of the field. We then play 2 copies of Terverion King Regulus. Regulus is awesome in the deck because this card is always live in this build because you're always going to have a Gimmick Puppet monster in the graveyard to be able to target with this card to give yourself a walking negate or an additional level 8 in the build. Plus, this card is actually searchable because of a card in our extract. So this card is really good as a 2-of in the build. So that's it for the monsters, guys. Let's get into the spells. So for the spells, we're going to start with a single copy of Junk Puppet. Junk Puppet is the in-archetype monster reborn that lets you target a Gimmick Puppet monster in the graveyard and special summon it, but it is a once per turn, which is why we're just playing a single copy in the build. We then play 2 copies of Lightning Storm. Lightning Storm is just really good because this is a going second build, so this card is great at destroying our opponent's attack position monsters or dealing with their back row. We then play 3 copies of Condolence Puppet. This card is really, really good in the build, which is why I bumped this card up to 3 in this deck, because this card is like a better version of Foolish Burial, and you can play just 2 copies of this and a copy of Foolish Burial if you want to, but I really like this card as a 3 of, and I always want to see it, because it has the ability to send a Gimmick Puppet monsters with different names from your deck to the graveyard up to the number of monsters that your opponent controls that were special summoned from the X deck, plus 1. So for example, you're always going to get at least 1 monster in the graveyard off this card's ability, but if your opponent has like 3 different monsters that are special summoned from the extract, you can activate this card as the first card out of your hand, and then dump 4 Gimmick Puppets to the graveyard, which is a really good ability, especially when you have cards like Jury Doll that can bring themselves back. So this card is really good in the build. It also has the ability you can banish this card from the grave and then target a Machine XZ monster that you control, and it cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects while face up on the field, which is a really good effect for this card to have. We then play 3 copies of Trade-In. Trade-In is a great draw spell for the deck, because we do have a bunch of targets in this build for Trade-In to be able to discard to the graveyard, and a lot of them do come back out of the graveyard by their own effects, which is really nice to be able to do with this build. So this card is a must 3 of just to help you dig into the deck. Plus, it's a pretty good budget option. We then play a single copy of Rank Up Magic Urgent Chaos Force. This card is an awesome rank up magic spell, so we can make our XZs into Chaos XZ monsters. So this card is a really good one of in the build. We then play 3 copies of Rank Up Magic Quick Chaos. I really like this card as the rank up magic of choice for this build, because this card can be activated at any time because it is a quick play, so you can actually activate this card during the battle phase to OTK your opponent by turning one of your XZ monsters into a CXZ monster, or even turn it into a CXZ monster during your opponent's turn. It has the ability to target a number XZ monster you control, except a copy of a number C monster, and then special summon from your X-Check 1 number C monster with the same number as the named monster that's targeted, but 1 rank higher by using it as an XZ material, which is what we're already doing in the build. So this card is great in this deck to be able to rank up your monsters during the battle phase when you attack with a card, or even to protect it from cards like limiter removal, which is really cool. Speaking of limiter removal, we do play 3 copies of limiter removal in the build as well, because it is an OTK going second build. So this card just helps you OTK your opponent a little bit easier, and it doubles the attack of all machine monsters that you currently control at the end of the turn. During the end phase of this turn, destroy those monsters. So if they're no longer on the field and they're attached as material with your copy of your rank up magic, ranking up those monsters that already gained their attack points, they don't get destroyed, letting you keep a monster, which is actually a really cool thing about this deck, giving you the ability to basically go around limiter removal, which is really cool if you didn't get that sweet OTK. We then play 3 copies of Machine Duplication. Machine Duplication is an awesome card to be able to work with in this deck, because it lets you target a machine monster you control with 500 or less attack points to special summon up to 2 monsters with the same name from your deck, which is a great effect to be able to use with cards like Drury Doll or Humpty Dumpty to get you additional monsters on your side of the field. This card is great as a 3 of in the deck. I just wish we had more level 8s in this archetype that had low attack point stats that you could use with this card. So that's it for the main deck, guys. We don't play any traps in this build because it's a going second OTK deck. Let's get into the extra deck. So for the extra deck, we're going to start off with number 40 Gimmick Puppet of Strings. We do play 2 copies of it, and you only really need 2 copies of it in this build because we have so many other cards that you can go into, and you're only ever going to go into C40 twice usually in this build. But this card is amazing because once per turn, you detach a material on this card and then place a string counter on each face-up monster on the field except this card. And if you do, during your opponent's next end phase, destroy monsters with string counters on them, and if you do, inflict 500 points of damage to your opponent for each monster destroyed. But it's usually never going to make it that far because you're going to rank this card up into C40, which is an amazing card to be able to rank it up into once you put those counters on cards, because this card has the ability that when this card is special summoned, destroy the monsters with the string counters on them, and if you do, draw a card. Then inflict damage to your opponent equal to the highest original attack among those destroyed monsters in the graveyard. And it's your choice if it's a tie, which is a really cool ability because you basically just destroy everything that has a string counter on it. And then once you do, you inflict damage to your opponent equal to the highest attack point that the monster had on the field, which was going to be, let's say, for example, a Blue Eyes White Dragon. Your opponent would take 3,000 points of damage, which is a super cool ability for this card to have. And once per turn, you can detach a material in this card and place a string counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls, which is a really cool effect for this card to have. We then play just a single copy of Giant Grinder. This card is a good one-of in the deck because it has the ability up to twice per turn during your main phase 1. You can detach a material from this card, target a special summon monster your opponent controls, destroy it, and if it was an XZ monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack points. But it's a great card to be able to play in the deck because it does deal with monsters on the field. We then play a single copy of C15. C15 is great as a one-of because you're only ever going to rank up into this card once, but it has a great effect that once per turn, you can detach a material from this card, target a card your opponent controls, and destroy it. And if you do, and it was a monster, inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack points, doing a little bit more burn damage to OTK your opponent. We then play a single copy of number 88. Number 88 is huge in this deck, coming in at 3,200, and it's actually a win condition, which is why we play this card as a one-of in the build. We then play a single copy of number C88 because we can rank up into this card. It makes the basically the win condition so much easier with this card because it must be special summoned with a rank up magic spell by targeting a number 88 Gimmick Puppet of Leo, and it cannot be special summoned by other ways. And this card cannot be targeted by card effects in once per turn. You can actually detach a material from this card and inflict 1,000 points of damage to your opponent. And during your end phase, if your opponent's life points are 2,000 or less and this card has no materials on it, you automatically win the duel, which is a great ability and so much easier to pull off than number 88, where you have to detach 3 materials from it to be able to get those destiny counters on it so that you can basically win the duel. We then play a single copy of Dingirsu. Dingirsu is great as a one-of in the build because it is a rank 8 machine monster that when it's summoned to your side of the field does send a card from the field to the grave. We then play a single copy of Gigantic Champion Sargus. Sargus is just really good in this deck because it can actually use the ability that if it's summoned to your side of the field, you can actually add a Spriggans monster or a Terverion monster from your deck to your hand, which is a great effect for this card to have, that while it has XZ materials, you get that ability, so you can add your copy of Regulus from your deck to your hand. And the really easy way to make this card is not by using 2 level 8 monsters, it's by summoning out Merrymaker. You summon out Merrymaker with your copies of your Humpty Dumpty or your copy of Terror Baby to be able to make Merrymaker, and then once you do, you immediately overlay your copy of Gigantic Champion Sargus on top of it, letting you search your copy of Regulus, which is really cool. And then play a single copy of Gigantostall. Gigantostall is like Change of Heart, which is really cool. You detach 2 materials on this card and then target 2 monsters your opponent controls, and you gain control of them until the end of the turn. You can also tribute this card and make both of those monsters become level 8 until the end of the turn, which is a really cool ability to be able to use to get a 2 level 8s on your side of the field so that you can basically make rank 8 XZ plays. We then play a single copy of Double A Zeus because it is an XZ based deck, so this card is great at board wiping your opponent. And finally, we play 2 copies of Chimera Doll. Chimera Doll is great in this particular build. It's the only link monster you need, though this card is great for extending your plays because it's basically like walking Foolish Burial, or it lets you search a Gimmick Puppet monster, which is great for this card to be able to do once during your main phase, which is a really cool ability, but you can use that effect every turn, which is a great effect. And if all monsters you control are Gimmick Puppet monsters, you can special summon a Gimmick Puppet monster from your hand when you do use this ability, which is a great effect. So that's it for the deck, guys. I hope you enjoyed. This deck is super fun to be able to play. If you guys have never played Gimmick Puppets before, you should definitely give this deck a try because it's absolutely wild and just really fun to be able to OTK your opponent with this build. I feel like OTKing your opponent is the best way to play this deck because it just makes so many crazy XZ monsters so fast. So that's going to do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell in there so you can become part of the notification squad, and we'll see you guys in the next video. See you later, guys.